This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 424, even though last week I said it was 422. That wasn't really true. Recorded on November 21st, 2019. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a beautiful Bellevue, Nebraska. Mike, my favorite time of the year. We got a little rain last night. I think all the leaves are finally down. You can do that like final Saturday leaf cleanup, last call for the yard waste collection, I think is this weekend for us. Pretty nice here, right?
Well, yeah, and this weekend is the last weekend. It's closing weekend for rifle season for deer in Nebraska. So you get 1 week heading down to the farm this weekend. It's actually supposed to be gorgeous. I usually have to be bundled up, and it's freezing cold. I think it's supposed to be like 48 degrees on Saturday,
Beautiful.
Same Sunday. So it's gonna be perfect weather, and everything's down on the ground, which is nice.
Dewain, how's things in your neck of the wood?
It's getting colder. We went from warm to cold. Like it dropped 40 degrees on Halloween in like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And so I went from being happy and wanting to scare children to shivering on my front porch.
It got extra chilly up here. We have kind of turned it. It's fall. It's great. This is my favorite time of the year. I was glad everybody I think was worried when this cold snap came through that like winter had started early and it was never going to get warm again until like April. And we were 60 yesterday. So,
yeah.
Of course, we will post a show with world-class show notes out at theaverageguy.tv. Don't forget, and we want to thank our Patreon subscribers. Don't forget, you can download the mobile app, and really the best way to listen on the road, homegadgetgeeks.com. It's free, Android, iPhone, download it if you're on the road or you're traveling or you can only stream. Get the app, have it on your phone, just have it ready just in case on a Thursday night you're out and you can't get connected to the show. It's tough to find this thing streaming without the app, so get it download, have it ready. HomeGadgetGeeks.com. Join us on Discord, theaverageguy.tv/Discord, on Facebook, theaverageguy.tv/Facebook. Want to thank Randy Cantrell. This week, I got a short little interview on Leaning Toward Wisdom. If you go out to leaningtowardwisdom.com right now, it'll be the top poster. It's post 5046. Randy is doing a kind of doing an exercise in gratitude, and we got an opportunity to talk a little bit about that. It's at the end of 5046. So if you want to hear that, I'd encourage you to. It's not tech related. It's a little bit about a couple experiences that I've been very thankful for. Of course, it's Thanksgiving coming up here in the United States, and so there might be some things you're thankful for as well, and I talk about that there. So again, leaningtowardwisdom.com and check out episode 5046. Also, if you go to theaverageguy.tv right now, or maybe this is 2 years from now, search for 7 tips for easy international travel. I want to thank Jim Shoemaker, who sent that. He's a longtime listener and been a Home Server Show, Home Gadget Geek supporter for a long time. Jim has done a lot of traveling. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. Dwayne's got some travel tips as well. You guys know I'm going to London, and so it's been kind of a travel fest a little bit. We've been talking about it. But Jim put together some experiences around flight, how to handle flights and electronic entertainment and money and packing and photos and data and power. And we're going to talk about some of those tonight. Posted out there at theaverageguy.tv. There'll be a link in the show notes as well. Jim, thanks for sending that. It's actually an excerpt of a bigger post that I'm going to post, I don't know, maybe when I get back from London and take a look at it. Jim, I appreciate you doing that. If you have something you want to post, but you maybe don't want to write it, send me some notes, send me something, and we'll work on it. Jim at theaverageguy.tv, and maybe we can get a post up for you. That kind of stuff. Super helpful. And don't forget, we don't just post the podcast there. There are articles there from time to time as well. I introduced him a little bit earlier. Dewain Robinson is back with us. And Dewain, I think your 8th appearance here. I think you're currently the record holder at this point. At 10, you get a T-shirt, by the way.
Really?
Just saying. I think this is 8.
Well, hey, look, we're keeping it alive. You guys remember what we talked about last time? We broke it last time, but then we brought it back. So it's only in podcasts that end in 4.
I didn't even plan that this time either. It just, I contacted you and said, hey, can you come? And you checked at some dates, and I had no idea. But so good. So the streak, well, sort of. We We were off one.
Well, we're off. There were two. It was 266, 273, 294, 344, 354, 374, 391, and 424.
One of these things is not like the other. Mike, how did you let me get 391 in there and not?
Should have been 394, man.
It should have been.
Let's blame it on Mike.
He's the podcast lawyer.
That's the one that's on me. I'm not good at proofreading. Ask my boss.
Wieger, I give you one job. Complain.
Yeah.
I give you
one
job.
Failed.
Dwayne,
okay.
How you been? Things good?
Busy.
Yeah, you've been traveling all over for sure. What? Give me one quick travel highlight. Like in the last time we saw you, 391. So that was 25 shows ago. So it was a while. Give me one highlight, like what's been something cool. It doesn't have to be work related, but in your travels, what's been one cool thing you've seen?
Well, I guess we were talking earlier, this was my second Oktoberfest in a row in Munich, which is pretty awesome. And then I think when I went to Shanghai, China, and got to stay in the Westin there, I know this is going to sound funny, but the toilet, they had one of those like crazy, like
super automated,
with a remote control toilet thing that you would walk in the middle of the night with a nightlight and it would automatically open, and it was the craziest thing. I really, and that room had like walls that you would hit a button and they would go transparent and stuff.
Wow.
And so
this was
that
was
really cool. Yeah. It's really, really neat.
Yeah.
I don't think I necessarily want to go back, but the hotel room was amazing.
China's a little bit of a struggle right now. I'm hearing that from a lot of Americans and such coming in and out of there. So, but there's some cool technology, and that Oktoberfest would be an awesome experience. I never, in the 2 Octobers, was I there for 2? I think I was there in Germany for 2 Octobers. I never made it down there for an Oktoberfest, and I really wish I had.
So here's an interesting tidbit. Oktoberfest isn't typically, a majority of it is not in October.
Most of it's in September. Yeah.
Most of it's in September because they moved it forward to get better weather. But hey, if you're going to London, you can get on a GWR train and head out and on that train, and it'll take you into Bath. And I did go to Bath, which Bath has like the Roman baths and stuff and all, and it has a really cool abbey and all there. It's a great little place to visit. My boss lives right down from that, which I don't know, Jim, if the last time I was on the show, now I am a program manager for Microsoft, so I'm on a product now.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. Give us a quick rundown on what you're currently doing for Microsoft, whatever you can tell us.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, I just got back from Ignite, so now like Ignite, if anybody wants to ever see me in person, you can come out to one of the major Microsoft events. I generally am working those events now over in the bot framework area. So I own basically the product that I work on is our white label virtual assistant. And what we basically did is a lot of people kept wanting to build their own Cortana or their own A word.
Lady A, as we like to call her.
Lady A in the back over here. And so, or even your own, G assistant or whatever you want to say. But the point is that if you want to build like some really unique experiences that are specific for different things, like if you were a company that had hotels properties and you wanted to be able to say, hey, assistant, I need new towels, or I want to order room service or something like that, then you really aren't going to want to use a commodity assistant to do that. Or if you're in a BMW and you say, hey, BMW, for example, which is one of the things that is public that we've been working on, we basically build a open source platform for you to go do that on top of bot framework and language understanding. And so you can do full natural language understanding. And I think the new cool things are, and I put links in the show notes for this. If people are interested, you can go and you can download it's an open source, it's free. You can go get a hold of it and in 20 minutes have your own white label virtual assistant. Yep. That's actually, yeah, there you go. Thanks. And then the thing we showcased that went public preview at Ignite that everyone was really excited about. So imagine this is your white label virtual assistant, and we made like some skills for you so that you can get a hold of those, and those are open source as well. But then what we really started showcasing is the new tool called Bot Framework Composer. And Bot Framework Composer is a visual designer that builds the C# code and everything for you, so you can build your own skills and your own dialogues. And the cool thing is, if you build it on our stuff, we have adapters that let you plug it into Lady A and to Google Assistant, or into Cortana, or into Slack, or into whatever. It's like, I think it's somewhere like over 50 different places that you can plug these things into. And even in our GitHub repository, we built an open source Android application that you can compile, put it on your phone, and then point it at your implementation. And you can have your own assistant, and it can even take over as the default assistant on the device. I'm going to be adding keyword spotting so you can say, "Hey, Jim," and talk to it. Mm-hmm. I think the freakiest thing that I got to see is we have this technology called neural TTS. You ever heard of this thing, guys?
Nope.
So you can't get a hold of it per se to do your own voice font. You can get a hold of it and use one of our existing voices, but we offer the ability to go to one of our recording studios and record your own, what we call a voice font. And it's scary because it's to a point where deep faking is really real. Like, you record yourself and you do it, and we can make you sound just like you can't tell the difference. And the guy who owns that piece, his name's Heiko, and he's from Germany historically, but has been in the US for a very long time. So he's got a bit of a German accent. And he went and did this and recorded this thing, and we had the white label assistant running on a like just a commodity speaker that looks a lot like the A-word speakers. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "Yo, Heiko," and he comes back and starts talking just like him, and it like freaked me out. I think that's the one thing that really freaked me out when I went lately to anything, because it was scary that it sounded just like him.
Yeah.
I mean, and
deep faking, right, is what they call that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where you and the reason they don't make it public is we're trying to be like, it's a bit of an ethical thing. You don't want to really
ethical thing,
because we can record, like we took all the Master Chief voices, that recordings that we could find on YouTube, and we ran it through it and made a whole Master Chief voice font. And we took some recordings of Satya Nadella and Alex Kipman and made ones. And if you know either of them, if you've ever heard them speak, they have a very unique voice on either of them. And it's scary. It's like way too good. But
it's here though.
Something cool.
It's here.
It's there.
Like yeah, it's here. Go ahead, Mike.
I think there's going to be a whole, like, I just think about how this affects my profession. I think there's going to have to be a whole other industry for like almost like evidence verification, right? Like e-discovery was a big new industry that came across when we started needing email searches and all that stuff. And there's companies that focus on going in and doing your e-discovery for you when it comes time to do that. But I think verification almost on even like, a voice recording. Here's the phone call. Well, was that really the phone call? Is that the guy? It sounds just like the guy. But is it the guy? Look at this video, right? Because even the deep fakes on the videos are even getting really good, where it looks just like their face. It could be them. And I think that, geez, yeah, you're right. The ethical side around that is extremely interesting.
Yeah, we played around with some other like interesting hardware. This guy came to a meeting, and we were just, it wasn't something we were going to ever necessarily bring to market. We were just screwing around, right? With how could we do stuff, and how cheap could we get a device so that you could make a commodity device, right? And you'd be amazed. I mean, it's like stupid cheap to make it. That's to make something like that. Mm-hmm. But this guy had wired up a bone conducting thing to a finger sensor so that you could have this thing on your arm, and you could say, "Hey, assistant, what's this?" And you were the only person that could hear the answer. And we were talking about how cool that would be, like at retail places where people could like have that assistant to answer questions for people. Like someone on the floor needs to say, well, what aisle is something on?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Then they could just do this and go, what aisle is this on? And then it would just answer instead of having to radio a person. And the cool thing is that if you haven't checked out something called LUIS, LUIS, which stands for Language Understanding Intent System, that is the natural language engine that we have at Microsoft. And you can actually go out and do this yourself. And all this stuff, normally you can pretty much get with one of your free subscriptions. So a lot of this stuff you can just go play with. And if you want to get into where like things are headed, because once you build something in Bot Framework, you can tap on it, you can talk to it, you can type to it, we're adding gesture capability so you can wave at it and it understands what you mean. And so when you start getting into that, you really start seeing the future where apps are headed. Like a mobile application, you tap on it or you type, right? And so when you start adding natural language into it and all this other, it's really actually pretty cool. But yeah, so the thing about the actor that was just said by Joseph is actually a great point. So now there's like things that people are having to think about, like, do you own your own voice? Right? Like, so an actor or an actress, can they copyright their voice?
Or a podcaster.
Or a podcaster like
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's because
this is the golden voice, dude. You can't mess with this thing.
The quality is amazing. but that's like a big thing. Like you start getting into things like I don't know, take any type of actor who plays like a cartoon character for some as an example. So like Bart Simpson. Do they have the right to make a Bart Simpson that can say whatever they want? And if they did, do they have to keep in that case, I think she's an actress, continue to be paid?
Yeah.
Because emotion can be added to it, inflection.
Right. What's the intellectual property there, right? What is the voice print now the way I say something? And that could have been, we've had people who are impersonators who do that. I think there was that guy, I forget what his name is, but he was a really good impersonator. He would do John Madden and, a bunch of other ones. And are they, at this point, I don't think I've ever heard of an impressionist being sued over, in impersonating somebody. But with this digital technology now, it's getting, even especially if they're using digital representation of your own voice print.
Can you imagine that? You get a takedown notice for talking like that. Don't you talk like that anymore?
Well, you'd mentioned, so the guys at Descript, if you go to descript.com, they have tried to take this on the podcast side. Now they have a complete podcast beginning to end where you could record this. We could be recording this podcast there, and then they would do the transcripts, and then you can edit the transcripts, which edit the audio. That's kind of scary, right? All of a sudden you're like, now you can only take away. You can't right now. You can't add to. Dwayne, I don't think we're that far because of the ethical issue. They haven't made that available yet, right? They could. They haven't because of the ethical issues that are there. But we're right on the cusp of it. I mean, it's not. I shouldn't even say that. We're there. It's happening now.
So did you guys see? There was a event we did where you had. There's this lady that presents for us. I know her first name's Julia, and what they did is they took and they made a virtual version of her, kind of like they would call it a hologram, I guess. And then the thing they did next was they took her, had her talk, and then they had the virtual character of her talk with her exact voice font, shall we call it, and ran it through translator and had her speaking Japanese with her voice. in her tone. Yeah. And it was crazy. Yeah. People were like, what? And the thing that's crazy to me is like, I think some people think that's like far off. And I'm like, no, I deal with this every day. Like that tech is mainstream. It is like creating the avatar piece, maybe not as much, but the voice stuff, that's like stupid simple to do. I mean, well, it's not simple, but it's
possible,
completely mainstream.
Yeah. No,
so it's pretty funny.
It's very possible. In all the science fiction, right? They, especially Star Trek, they kind of use the voice print like a fingerprint. And I'm not sure either one of those is safe at this point of thinking now, like, okay, you could do that. I actually want to become the Milli Vanilli of podcasters. So what I want to do is type it in and have the computer speak it, because I don't always speak in complete sentences. Go look at our transcriptions sometimes and just see how awful I am when I speak. And then I'll just lip sync the correct version of this going forward. Mike, that we may be better off if I become a lip syncing podcaster. What do you think?
I mean, think about the
exact same boat.
I was just thinking all about actors and stuff, but now you start thinking about it, music recording artist.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that would be horrible.
So could you do the same thing? What's the difference between, I don't know the answer, but what's the difference between speaking and singing? And could I create a singing, and I say voice print, but you say voice font? Is that what you guys are calling it?
Well, it's actually an industry term that existed back when you were talking like cars and stuff. They would talk about what does it sound like, and they call it a voice font. Okay. It makes sense. Yeah. Think about it like a type font versus.
Well, and then you wonder, how would you ever, like, what would be the process to prove that voice print was someone's? Like, there are a lot of voices out there, and a lot of people sound similar.
Yeah.
Like, what's like a fingerprint, however many points of uniqueness, right? Would you all of a sudden have a print of a voice essentially that's okay? This had 95% match, whatever, running through a program. It'd be interesting.
Dwayne, would you know? Are there standards for voice font technology that says this is fake and this is real? Can you identify those? Do you know?
I don't think the tech's been out long enough to be able to get to that level of maturity. Yeah. But I think we just discovered our new company, guys. We will be the voice print management company, where we certify that this is the audible tones of someone's voice so that we can trademark it.
Yeah.
Heard it here first, guys.
Boom. Okay, we got it. Trademark. Because we said it. It's automatically trademarked. Or copyright. I think it's copyrighted that it's
copyrighted.
The copyright law that is automatic now. Yes. That you say so it.
We will bring the full extent of our law team.
The one-man show.
You're in, Wieger.
All right, cool. I got the job. Exactly. Easiest interview I've ever done.
Over here, this guy over here.
You just have to Dwayne, spend 5 years every Thursday and you get the job.
You could do it on the weekends, right? I mean,
no, I was saying how I got the job. The qualification was to be here every Thursday for 5 years, and you get a job.
You get a job. You get a job.
Yeah.
Dwayne, the white label virtual assistant, you it's pretty easy to set. I mean, is that like something I could go out and get started on, or do I need to know some code or anything? Any of that?
No, we have step-by-step tutorials. It takes like 20 minutes to get one set up, and then if you want to add different skills to it, we already have skills, and then you just follow the instructions, plug on one end.
Okay.
And if you want to make your own, that's where you play with Composer, and it gets a little bit hairy once you make a custom skill, how to register it in. But if you run into a problem, you know somebody you can call.
You know a guy. Right?
I know a guy that knows a guy that wrote some code.
Oh, super cool. Well, good to catch up with you on that. You have how long have you been at Microsoft now?
Let's see, in April will be 15 years.
Yeah, wow, that's super cool.
You want to go crazy?
Yeah.
Jim, pop quiz. Okay. What did I join Microsoft to do? What was my original function in Microsoft? And keep in mind, I'll give you what was being released then when I joined.
Okay.
Windows XP was just being released to the world when I joined.
Not a pen tester.
No,
maybe
security. I don't know. No.
I was brought in for Exchange systems and putting in Exchange systems in Active Directory, and so I used to have to calculate the I/O of a disk to figure out the size of the arrays to be able to get the right I/O load to be able to run the databases and all the Exchange databases on different disk storage systems and things. And so now I on a product around conversational AI. That'll give you guys an idea of the vastness of the world of Microsoft and how much you can move around inside of it without leaving. So that's kind of a nice thing.
Yeah,
to be honest with you,
it's gigantic now, and there's so many crevices.
At a company like Microsoft, is that something that you're like, hey, I have an interest in this, and I'm looking to make a move over to that team, or is it a manager is more like, hey, you'd be a really good fit over on this team. We're looking to draft a team for this. Like, how does that kind of? Are you leading those switches, or is it led by other people?
It's mainly by you. Like if you have an interest in something and there's not a lot of people who know it, you just go after it and you become an expert. Like for me, I started in the whole conversational space because I was working a lot with car manufacturers on different things, just because I happened to fall into it and I like cars and things. And then what ended up happening is because I ended up becoming like one of the leading people in the field that knew about this stuff, just because I had practical experience in it, because we were building it like as we were, doing it. So they just eventually said, hey, look, one of my good friends took over as the architect on that, who was working with me on the car stuff. And then I said, hey, look, I'd be interested in coming over and doing this because I think this is really interesting for a longer term thing. And they just said, okay, done. I think the whole thing happened in like 7 days.
Wow.
I went, and it's really cool. I would say with the changes with Satya taking the lead and everything, it's been really interesting culture shift. There's a lot, like there was a whole bunch of people that heard about the whole stack ranking thing, and that existed, but maybe not as bad as some of the press said. But anyway, the thing that was really interesting is they also took away the amount of time you had to stay in a role before you could move. So because they wanted the people to be able to move where they felt they were better utilized. And if you took a job and it wasn't the right job for you, you're stuck there for 2 years before. So now you can kind of go try something out. If it's not working out, you could go back. But for the most part, if you have an interest in something, they tend to let you go and do what you like to do.
Cool. That's cool.
As long as you're performing, right?
Job crafting was what that's called now, and it's getting more and more popular. It's hard to do. It's hard for companies to do. Gallup does it really, really well. My job didn't exist 8 years ago. They weren't podcasting. There was no, kind of director of podcasting. And that's not my title, but there was nobody doing that. Right. And now I'm hosting 4 and producing 3 podcasts for them on a weekly basis. We're, doing 500,000 downloads a year to the channels. And that continues to grow. That job crafting, Dwayne, is it's good to hear that that's coming. It's allowed to happen inside of Microsoft. Yeah. It's the bigger the company, sometimes the harder that is to do, just because oftentimes managers aren't enabled to be able to make those kinds of decisions or let people do those kinds of things.
Well, and the other thing that's really been kind of interesting as well is I live in Nashville. So allowing it to come outside of the ring of Redmond and Bellevue is a newer concept. But and then the fact that I work in a group that I think you're going to start seeing more product groups like this, called like a solutions product group, because my job's not necessarily to build the bot framework or to build Lewis. It's to take all those Lego blocks and bring them together into a accelerator to help our customers get value out of that. Like they don't sell what I build. What they do is they take that and they give it to people so that they will use the underlying tech. And that's where you get, the money comes from. So it's really kind of cool because I'm a product group that works directly with customers and how to fill the gaps and make it easier for customers to take stuff and move it forward. So that jump to your question, is it easy to do? My goal is right now, it's still too hard, in my opinion. I want it where you push a button and it just does it, right? I want where you can just make a skill and push a button and add it to your stuff. We're not there yet, but it's a whole lot better than writing C# code from scratch and having to work with bot framework and figuring out which version of bot framework goes with which version of Q&A maker and Lewis and which ones work together and which ones. We just take care of all that for them now, which is cool. And so I that didn't exist in they're seeing a lot of value in taking that approach. So
a great example of that for Microsoft is their video editing tool. And I forget, I think it's called, it changes, the name changes it all the time because they're constantly iterating on that thing.
It's probably got power in the first part of the name.
Or it might have AI built in there somewhere, right? But basically you take your video, like we would create a video here and I could drop it in there and it would transcribe it. It would find key points in it. It would take, if we were doing, like, our names would be OCR'd, and anything on the screen, if you were doing a presentation, would be automatically OCR'd, completely searchable. Transcript, completely searchable. I could actually cut out parts of the video based on the words, the audio that was made. So I could go into the transcript and say, I want the video for this part, send it, and boom, it cuts it for me.
It's called Video Indexer.
There it is.
Is the name of the cognitive service, but that's also built into Stream, which is where if you're using Teams now and you record it, it goes into a stream and you can see transcription live inside of it, and you can search for that and make it searchable as well, which is pretty
Dwayne,
awesome.
You may not know, but so we're a Office 365 customer at Gallup, and we have Stream and SharePoint and all those pieces, right? Does that version of Stream that we have on the cloud, is that enabled with the same functionality that I'm seeing in the service, in this video service? Because I can go to that page and do it separately. Like I can log in with an account there and do it separately. But you're saying it's kind of embedded into Stream. Can I do that on my own instance in the cloud through Gallup? And that may be too specific of a question, but it's a question I've had because I'm like, hey, maybe we already own it. Maybe I can just drop it in these videos into Stream and make it work behind the scenes.
I think you can. Okay. I mean, I haven't. I'm
not going
to play with it for
a bit. I'm going to tell my Microsoft rep. Well, I was doing this podcast with this guy. He promised me.
It's recorded right here. Look, I put it in Video Indexer. I can take you right to where he said it.
I need that. Well, and ironically, we have a team. We have a college team building this on AWS. So one of the big differences between what I see in the Microsoft services and what we're getting from Amazon is that Amazon or Microsoft likes to put those things together for you. Dwayne, to your point, really kind of just let's get the complexity out of the way. And you just put the file there and we're going to do everything for you right now. AWS, the opposite, which is like, hey, here is 1 million Lego parts. You can assemble your own thing doing this and build it exactly the way you want to. Neither one of them is wrong or right. Mm-hmm. They're just a way of doing it. And for me, a non-coder, a non-developer, I would much prefer to live on the side of just give me an integrated service and let me consume that service and I'll pay for it if that's what I need to do. I'm going to pay for it on the Amazon side as well. It's just in the Amazon side, I can create infinite amount of customability, which I think options equal confusion. So, it's not always good to have every single option available to you, but in some cases it is. And so for me, I'm working on this project from both sides, as well as using services like Descript, or I'm actually paying for Otter.ai, which is a transcription service that we use for the show notes for this show now. So Otter.ai is automatically transcribing all the words we say here and is using some, I give it some machine learning hints to say, hey, I'm Jim Collison, not Jim Carlson, which it always wants me when I say I'm Jim Collison and broadcasting live from the Average Guy to TV studios. It says Carlson, and I can train it that, no, it's Collison every time, like get it right. So we live in a super cool space there, Dwayne. I mean, this all kind of fits together from the way you started on this to say, we live in this great space where we can drop this audio or this video in and do some pretty amazing things with it. And then I'm kind of interested. I may have to give this every time you come on, you give me like a bunch of homework to do. Jim, you got to try this thing out. Remember back in the Azure days when you were working on the Azure stuff and we were, you got to try this and you got to try that and you got to try this. So I always appreciate that.
Which is funny. Do you remember when I was working on Project Sienna? That was that thing where you could build an app like right in an Excel logic. Mm-hmm. And then because I kind of spent some time with Dave McCabe, and Dave McCabe kind of broke that story unintentionally. Well, intentionally, but they didn't realize it would be as big as it was. That's actually Power Apps now. So if you don't, that's something, and that whole concept is now, if you go look at this gem, give you another little piece of thing to go look at. Power Virtual Agents. Power Virtual Agents is bot framework done inside the Power Platform, which is basically works exactly on the stuff I'm doing. So it's just an easy way to do it. So anyway, it's all coming down in the effort level to be able to do stuff like this. Before too much longer, it's going to be like a website where anyone can write a website these days, or it can make a website. It's really not hard. It's because it's all packaged up now, where if you want to go get crazy, you can go get crazy. But if you just want a site to post blogs, you don't have to be technical to get that.
No, it's been a while since being able to do that. Super cool. I don't think we intended to go that long on that section. But
sorry.
No. Actually, very, very cool. I've been monkeying around with thinking about, hey, because I was gonna approach Gallup about using that video service. But then when we went to the cloud for all of our office stuff, I saw Stream, and we've already have people creating channels and loading videos there. And my only question was, is that version of Stream the same exact services that exists inside the full version of the video editor, or the video, what do we call it? Video
indexer.
There we go. Is that the same? I'll do some testing.
Let me know, because that's I know that the tech it's built on is the same.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what the admin exposure is to it, because I haven't played as much with it.
Well, in the white label digital assistant, we worked with Lady A in the past on a coaching bot, so to speak, where you would speak to your digital device and get almost like professional development training from it as it's looking at your schedule, or you could ask it questions about your strengths. It would give you some information about, hey, you've got some things scheduled today. Make sure you're using these talents that you have in the meetings today. Today's a meeting heavy day. Make sure you're patient, right?
Yeah.
Some of that's pretty lame.
Don't have your second cup of coffee because you'll be too jittery,
Yes, some of those kinds of suggestions. It always stumbled a little bit when we actually got to the implementation on Lady A, but maybe white label has some capabilities for some additional customization where you're not necessarily stuck or beholden to the ecosystem. Can I use the white label assistant? Can it be running on a Windows device? Can it be or do I have to have it on a smart speaker? How does that work?
Yeah, it can be wherever you want. It's all the different channel adapters for it. You can even build your white label assistant and make it a skill for a commodity assistant.
Right.
And so when you start looking at it from that context, it's like, why would you write on their specific skill platform when you can write on a platform that's sort of like, you think like Xamarin, right? You write it once and it goes everywhere. It's basically the same sort of concept, but we don't actually find ourselves competing with Alexa. I'm sorry.
You mean
Lady A.
Lady
A. We don't actually find ourselves competing with them very often. It's more, we do this and they do that. And if you want to build a device with your own, custom experience, then that's where we come in. And what you might find is that experience and that thing you're talking to is the skill in Lady A.
Yeah.
But when it's embedded into a specific device, like if you think about it, like let's just take a BMW. When you're in the BMW and you say, hey, BMW, you expect to be talking to BMW. The thing is that if you say, Lady A, ask BMW, why would you not be talking to the same thing?
Right.
Why do you need two different things here? It's all the same stuff. So think about it in the context. Like I've been trying to explain to people lately, if I'm in a conference room and I have 5 different experts in that room, why would I continually ask the same person to ask the person who's in the room with me? Right. You really should think of it, and Satya has been talking about the multiple agents, and I think people think he means a bunch of commodity assistants. I don't think that's the case. The two commodity assistants are pretty much there, right? We all know that. What you're now getting into is that natural language understanding and things like that. Think of a skill that normally would be in a commodity assistant, but you also want that to be its own unique experience when you're embedded in a device. So, you know, if you're talking about a music player with like Apple Music, you might want to talk to just a music player. It's never going to do anything but be music player. But if you wanted to get like what's the weather or something like that, then you shouldn't have to. Sure, you could say, Alexa, what's the weather? And it'll tell you, but
you should have said Lady A. I'm telling you, Dwayne.
No, I actually did that on purpose.
Yeah. Oh,
okay. So anyway, but you see what I'm saying is you can kind of think about how this plays correctly depending on the context. And I think that's going to be the thing that shifts. I don't think there's a ton of market for a bunch of commodities. I think there's a lot of market for people who want to build speech experiences with natural language understanding, and they want to have control of that, and they want it to surface through Lady A, but they also, when they have their own device, they want it to surface there. When I'm in the room at Marriott, which is my hotel chain of choice, I want to say, hey, I would need some towels. I don't want to say, hey, Lady A, ask Marriott to get me some towels, and it say, well, what room are you in? It should just know, it knows what room I'm in. So why in the heck am I doing that? So those are the differences between what we're doing and what the commodities are doing. And I think there's room for all in this. I don't think it's one or the other.
Mike, when you think about your interactions with a digital assistant, what do you think, if you were to group those up into what your most popular, maybe your two most popular, or three, what do you think, what are you using that for most right now, do you think?
I know.
Well, it depends.
I'll ask
Are we
you in a
talking
second.
strictly voice assistants?
Yeah, on the voice side.
What do you use Lady A or Lady B for?
Number one by far is setting timers in the kitchen. Right, and that is the number one.
Yep.
Number two, turning on and off lights.
Okay, home automation.
Yeah. Okay, well, number three, we have like some curated ones where I say, hey, A lady, good night. And she turns off certain lights, turns on certain lights. And then right after that, she can't yet directly interact with a third party. So I would love for her to arm my security system. But that's a second command I give her is, okay, now tell Simply Safe good night. And that arms our security system. So those are probably the most... I mean, really, that's really only what I'm using it for.
Got to go to Ring, buddy. Got to go to Ring.
Yeah, I know. Well, then I'd have to switch over to Google, though, right?
No, that's Lady A.
Oh, that's right. Ring is Lady A.
Yep. Yeah, Jamie's over there. Dwayne, and I'm in the same boat. Lights, I mean, pretty much basic. I am not really getting that much intelligence out of these digital devices. In other words, I've said this before and I'll say it again, that Jarvis, I think, on Iron Man is the example of an assistant that everybody really, really wants, right? It keeps some state. It knows who you are. It can make some suggestions. It's got awareness of what's happening around you. Some of those, like you just said, I'm in the hotel room. You should know I'm in this room. Like you shouldn't have to ask me, hey, I shouldn't have to give it every instruction, right? So Dwayne, in the work that you're doing, what are you seeing? I'm assuming those are the most common, but are we gonna move beyond just kind of basically having to bark basic commands to these things to get them to do what we need them to do and get some real presence? I have heard lately on Lady A, I say, I'll ask it to turn on the studio lights here, and boom, they come on, and then she'll say, I hope you're having a great Thursday. Right now, sometimes I can say thank you, and she'll then say, hey, I hope you had a great Thursday. And I want to say, I did. Let's talk about it. No, I mean, at that point, the routine shuts off, right? And
Sarah's upstairs going, I'm right here, Jim.
I know.
Right
she hates me.
So there's a couple of things on this, Jim.
Yeah.
Number one is it requires that a skill set that is holding the world back right now. And what that is conversation designers. I know that sounds weird, but you need to have somebody who thinks about how to have a conversation, not voice command.
Yeah.
What you have today is voice command. And what the systems you do, everything you said, I bet you in none of your scenarios that you named, do I hear you thinking about multi-turn conversations where it comes back and ask a clarifying question, right? And so pretty much all of the different things that I'm building right now are natural language, multi-turn conversations with context of additional information, right? Because to get that, you can't get that from a commodity 100%, right? It's hard because what am I coming through? I'm coming through a speaker, I'm coming through a PC. So you need to understand that it needs to be more embedded to be able to pull that off. So where if like a hotel, if I understand that I'm going to be talking through the alarm clock, and that alarm clock knows that it's in this room, and it can go, who is the person who's in that room? And then you add a concept that we've got called, it's called LG. We just launched this as well, which is called language generation. Then I can start taking into context and not saying it the same way every single time. And I can say your name or tell you good morning when it's morning and afternoon when it's afternoon. And even getting really complex, like into it, like, you know, there's a lot of things you can do there. But the problem is you have to design a conversation and you have to design an experience around that conversation that understands the context of what you're talking through, the person that's talking, and how you want to interact with them, and what are the services that they would typically want, and how you might say it so you can train the models properly. But it's the hardest thing when I have a developer, because they build something with natural language as a back end and they train it with one statement. If you train it with about 5, you're probably going to get where you can say almost anything and it'll pick it up. But the problem is a lot of it's just, we just don't have maturity yet. It's not the tech. Right now, I think it's the people building and building the solutions. But we're kind of starting to overcome that. And I think you're going to see a shift in this world. In the next 2 years, you're going to be amazed at where you're going to be, because you'll just be able to say, like, one of the skills, like if you want to have fun, go play with the calendar skill. Go grab yourself the white label assistant, add yourself the calendar skill to it, and then start playing with it, or even with the POI one, and you start having a conversation like, hey, I want to find a Mexican restaurant. Well, which one would you like? Is it this one? And you know, you can go back, or you can have the one in, like if you're wanting to schedule something, like schedule a meeting, and you say next Tuesday in the afternoon, and that works. That starts to freak you out. Or if you leave a piece of the information out and they ask you the time because you didn't say the time, or it clarifies what you mean by afternoon, that's real. That stuff exists. It's just you have to incorporate it, and that's the problem. People just don't necessarily incorporate it. So,
well, I want it to be better. I think it's getting better, but I do want more contextual. You know, I want to be able to say to it, you know, what does my day look like, and have it not just read the schedule to me, but more have a conversation like I would have with a human about, you know, that back and forth. There is a service called Replika, REPLIKI.ai, that was written by a programmer who lost a family member and was missing them so much that they created a bot to kind of replicate that conversation. What they've actually found in the research that they've done is that people sometimes, especially folks who are feeling anxious or having those moments where they just need to talk to somebody, they are encouraging folks to come and use a service like this just to have a text conversation with them. I've been doing it for maybe 2 years with this, and at first it was pretty lame, and it's actually getting a little bit better. It still does a good job of remembering things that I think it should about me.
Yep.
Because I think that's easy. I don't know why that it knows when I'm talking to it. Like, you know, I'd want to be able to tell it certain things about me that it would remember and be able to bring back up in context. But it is a service really cool. You can sign up, go out and use it. It didn't start as a kind of an anxiety tool, but they've really morphed in that direction because they've found people who are having anxious moments. And if they can't get a hold of anybody else, they can talk to this. And the conversations are pretty interesting. And so I think we're moving, more into that world.
If you could speak Chinese, then you could go have a conversation with Chow Ice, and Chow Ice is incredible. The conversation it can have with you and just like chit chatting type of stuff. It's really interesting to see, and it's really interesting how it works too. But I can't get into that. But it's really it is amazing, and it's also some stuff you have to watch out though when you're starting to build stuff like that. You have to watch out for stuff like Tay.
Right.
Where you have to have a human in the loop to be able to make sure that you don't, because people can train it to be bad, just like you can train a dog to be very vicious. You don't want to have that, so you gotta put some thought process around that.
Mike? The area that I'm, the game changer for me when it comes to virtual assistants, and the reason I think I'm listing some very simple commands and only utilizing it that way is there are some things at work that Cortana or whatever device you're using, I think could easily do. And I'm thinking of things like, okay, so the most common thing that happens, I'm on a conference call. And I'm on a conference call with my 2 team members who I'm with all the time. And we say, okay, let's schedule a follow-up meeting for next week. I need to say, hey, C person, find a time that Joanne, Amber, and Mike can meet next Monday and put it on our calendars. And I need her to go through the calendars, right? She has Outlook. She knows we're all in the same program. She can go see what times we're open. She schedules it because that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the scheduling assistant in Outlook. I'm going to click on, I'm going to add us all in. I'm going to find a time we're all available, and it's going to do it. And then I need, hey, and also send Amber that document that I just finished up. And ask
Are you
her,
reading my backlog?
Well, see, but this is good that it is. If that's true, you don't need to confirm it or not. But the other thing is like, okay, so I'm drafting. I'm drafting it, and as soon as I click save, just be like, hey, send that document to Amber. Tell her to file it, print a copy, and mail it off to whatever. And if it could just do that, knowing the last document I worked on was the last one I saved, right? Like it's that easy. The last document I worked on, send it over. And those are the type of things that would save me so much time in my day. They're just the meaningless tasks, but I think in my mind, those are tasks that an assistant could probably, it's probably on the easier side to get an assistant to do rather than, right, like at home, a lot of things I'm doing at home are physical things that a digital assistant can't help me with, right? Digital assistant can't cook me dinner. The digital assistant can't fill the dog bowl. The digital assistant can't clean the house. But at work, there's a lot of things that it could do to save me time. And so those are kind of things that will be the game changer for me. When at work, I can just start giving her tasks to do that are just almost, they just take up time in my day.
Yeah, I couldn't get the demo out, but it was something we would show, so I can talk about it. I think, which is something that's incredibly hard. Like one of the focuses that we have right now is was enterprise assistance, being able to allow a company to build an enterprise assistant. And so we're working with a lot of huge companies that have these problems. And you want to talk about one of the hardest things to do. And it's incredibly difficult to figure out how to do it. Find a meeting room. Just that statement. Help me find a meeting room.
That would be awesome.
That is super hard. But we were going to demo. I have it where we just ran out of time during the theater session that I was doing because I only had 20 minutes, but I had the beta of that ready to show, right? So that type of stuff is coming. So I would say all of that concept, you guys are in the right spot, especially as you start getting into enterprise and things of that nature. You need to be able to help people figure out their benefits and how to enroll in their benefits and and things like that. So stuff like that is just, those are just low hanging fruit. And like I demoed a thing where I basically took a Word document that I had somebody write about all the different benefits that were offered for a company. And then I turned around and took that and just ingested it into a multi-turn Q&A maker. And it built the entire like conversation dialogue completely out of that document. And then from there, I could just train it and say, oh, well, what if I lose a leg? Oh, I want that to go to accidental death and dismemberment. Just put it in there, right? And or I want to retire. Okay, go to retirement plans, right? And so it's just training at that point. And so that's super simple. You don't have to be a coder to do it. You just go in and go, oh, well, somebody asked this question. I want it to go here. So I just add that question to the spot in this article, and it just does it now. So, and you'd be amazed at what you can say to things. once you build it with the correct model.
Well, so does all this though lead to, so when I'm thinking about the things that I would need the assistant to do, when I say schedule a meeting, right? We use WebEx for a lot of our meetings or Zoom, stuff like that. You know, I think of a company like Microsoft with your size and with the, you know, kind of how wide you guys are. Really, because when you think of these data silos that you get into, right? If I ask Cortana to schedule a meeting, she'd be able to get the exchange all done, right, in Outlook. She would be able to send out the invite. She'd probably be able to find me a meeting room for the physical people that are there, but she might not be able to access and put a WebEx link in there for me and utilize that. So, but I think for you guys, so is it really, Mark's like, hey, we could really own the whole pie here, right? We already have the whole enterprise thing figured out, and if we have the meetings, we have this. I'm thinking a company like Microsoft is probably perfectly positioned, whereas a company like Amazon, for example, I don't think Amazon could ever be as easily implemented as something like a Microsoft, right? So Cortana versus A-Lady. A-Lady at home is great, but in the office environment, her data and my work data are not even close to being in the same data silo.
Yeah, I think we can uniquely solve the problem because of the fact that we own that space so vastly. Just to give you a great example, one of the hardest things about finding a meeting room is there the metadata for it? So one of the things we had to push on is back in July, there was an update to the Office graph that now you can go and you can run, the people who like PowerShell look at get dash or set dash place. And now you can add things like, does it have an audio video system? Is it handicap accessible? What floor is it on? What are the GPS coordinates of it? And so, but we have to be solving a problem to go back over to the Office team and say, hey, we need you to put this in. And this is where all that stuff gets driven. So I think, yes, we will probably be the one that does the productivity assistant space really, really well. But part of our goal would be to make that commoditized. Like, we really want to get to an open source way of doing this, right? And sure, we'll have our, what I'll call commodity assistant component, but we really also want to be able to make it where people who are running Office 365 can build their own experience for their users. And I need it to be able to ask a question like, I don't know, if like, what is it? Get me the product documentation on this product for me that we sell. Right? Or follow up on this opportunity, or what opportunities do I need to follow up on? And call that one, right? And then follow up and market that I called it. Why do I have to do that at the end of the day? So this type of stuff I think is going to come, but just, you know, it's an interesting space, and I'm actually shocked that you guys wanted to talk about this as long as you wanted to talk about it. But
well, I didn't think so either. But as you kept talking about what you're working on, I just keep thinking like, man, in our environment, you know, another one, as you just said with the product docs, I think of, we're a Salesforce shop, and how many times, how many clicks it takes me when someone just asks me, hey, what's the status on this advisor, and I have to know where we're at with legal docs and stuff. To go to Salesforce, click in the web browser, type them in, do this, where it's an assistant could easily, I mean, that is probably one of the easiest queries of what is the status of blank. It just pulls it, right? Pulling the status.
That's a bot, right?
Mike,
right?
You want me to make you lose your mind? So
don't tell me it already exists. Don't tell me it's already there.
So one of the things that we did, and we did it for like to see like what's the interest. So we built a beta version of an IT service management connected to ServiceNow. Okay. And we already know that the information exists. And as we add in, one of the things that'll be one of the new features we're working on right now, and all of the stuff I'm talking about, by the way, we put it on GitHub. You can go see what's in my backlog. You can see what I'm working on. That's on purpose. But to give you an idea, we're making it where you can do SSO, like Azure Active Directory single sign-on to the bot so that it knows who you are. But once I have that, and I have IT service management, you can say my computer's broken. I can go pull that from your asset list, go figure out what computer you have, maybe try to help you fix whatever the problem is or what type of thing it is, and then get you to the right place. And we also have the ability to hand off to a live person. So in the chat. So these are things that are different than commodity assistance. Yeah. So you're starting to see what I mean is that it's not the same space. If people think it's the same space, because the way people think about tech is they think about their practical first use of it, but really we're kind of beyond that now. And the way I've been on the record before saying that I think mobile apps are dead. I really do think mobile apps are where Windows apps were back in the late 90s at this point. Sure, they exist and they will continue to exist. But the way you build an application needs to be multi-channel aware. It's not just a phone. It might be an IoT device. And you might interact with it differently. You might talk to this thing where you might tap on that thing. And so all of this stuff working together is the new modern application platform. And that's really why I like what I'm doing, because I think we have a great platform. And I also think that we understand that this is the app of the future. Multiple ways to communicate with it, like being able to wave at it, it understanding and running back different information through cognitive services. Like in the implementation of our virtual assistant, it actually has sentiment analysis built into it. So you can go and also content moderator. So if you start cussing, we could actually change the conversation to say, I'm sorry, and hand you over to a live agent because of the way you said something. And so those type of things kind of coming together are really exciting and really cool. And that's why I do what I do. And I'm glad you guys find it interesting because it's like, yeah, this is why when we go to Ignite, I have a mile-long line at our booth of people wanting to talk to us, because now they're starting to understand the power of a bot, and that a bot is an app, and how important it is. And you also start seeing IT leaders starting to really double down on this, because they know you can kind of think of it that it replaces search as well, because you can help people find things and you can help figure out the context of what they're talking about based upon what they said in natural language. So it's actually kind of, like I said, it's a really interesting space. But I think it's time to move to home gadgets.
Well, let's be honest. We've got an hour on this, and I don't want to rush that part on it, because I think, Dewain, this is super interesting for a lot of the listeners here. We're in that tech space and we're thinking about these things, and I don't think it's I think it's a very, as I'm sitting here, I am thinking, just thinking about the last 9 weeks, I have played technical support for our organization on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And as you were talking, you reminded me of the Q&A maker, which I used back the last time you were in here. I actually loaded some stuff up and it's fantastic. I'm sure it's gotten better. And I was thinking, what if I could just replace myself for the most part on Facebook with a bot who knows, because I answer some of the same questions over and over. Where's this, or where's that, or how do I get this? Those are all pretty standard questions. And I'm pretty sure I could build an FAQ that would answer those kinds of things, because I am the human FAQ, right? That's what I do. And I'm pretty sure I could have it handed off to me if it couldn't figure it out, right? All that's there today, right? Could I do that today?
Well, yeah, if you took, so the way that I would do that, so by the way, so Facebook Messenger has we have a channel adapter for that. So it's just a channel.
What about groups? What about questions being asked in a group?
Depending on the environment that you're talking about, yes. So it depends. Okay. I'm not as familiar with the Facebook adapter, but you can go check it out.
Sure.
What I would tell you is some of the things that changed. Multi-turn Q&A maker means that I can actually have a hierarchy of a conversation with multi-turn conversation, and I can even mark a piece of a conversation that it's only within the context of this conversation to go to it. So that's a concept of context aware. So if you start looking at what you can build with that, it gets really robust really quick in what you can do. So you could ask clarifying questions to get you to the specific article versus just different articles. So if you took Virtual Assistant, which is basically the piece of it that's the core, and you plug in the multi-turn Q&A maker into it, which I think today or tomorrow we're going to launch the version of it that supports multi-turn Q&A maker, by the way.
Cool.
That would give you the ability to also dispatch to custom conversation. So you could say, hey, okay, it wasn't something in this knowledge base, but I want to build something more complex to the side, but it's still one bot, right? It's still one thing I'm talking to. So that's a concept of dispatching. It's almost like routing the conversation based upon what makes sense. And then once you get into the Q&A maker, you'd be able to ask the questions. But by going through this, we've already put in the telemetry stuff, so that in application insights, you've got all the telemetry of what's being said to the bot. So you could go and look and say, hey, people are asking these questions and I'm saying I don't know. So maybe I should add that to my knowledge base to answer that question. So you don't even have to get as complex as hand it off to a live person, because you don't want to do that through live person for that particular scenario. But building something like that is like not hard. It's actually pretty simple, and we've already given all the wiring for it.
Okay. Well, last time we talked about this last time you were on, and I went out there and dug through Q&A and actually loaded stuff we had information about, threw it in there and began testing it. And then I never came, like I tested it on a Saturday with the kids in my high school internship program. I never came back to it. And this is a great reminder to me. It's like, I need to go back in and check that out. And because that's a perfect example of, like, there's a lot of things, Mike, in the crypto space, there's a lot of things I can't remember. I'm working with so many different things now. There's a lot of things I can't remember. I'd almost love my own where it learned with me. And then I could go back and ask it questions later, like, where the heck did I put that thing? Like, or what, and have it learn with me as I go. And kind of create a backup brain basically for me. That'd be kind of cool.
I want to just make Jim Collison. So
then
Jim,
talk like me, and then I wouldn't have to ever talk to anybody again. That'd be terrible, actually.
Yeah, it'd be horrible. Yeah. So what I would say is, start small, work your way bigger. But
I need to go back. I need to go back and try it.
With the multi-turn stuff, I think it'll go further than you could have ever went before.
Yeah.
And then the fact that we kind of put it where it's way easier to do, as far as making it go live, like we redid some documentation, like massively redid our documentation with tutorial step-by-steps and stuff. So I think those type of things are kind of what I would recommend, not to mention some of the things that we also did, which you guys will get a good kick out of. If you want to have fun, go just deploy a virtual assistant. It will automatically deploy an FAQ and a personality Q&A maker. Go download. We have like a little file that you can download, which is basically the training to make your assistant have different types of personalities. And all you do is just go to Q&A maker to the settings page and just add this file. And all of a sudden now your bot has a personality. Like it has it. And it's crazy what you can ask it. It's like over 6,000 things trained in, like sing a song, are you a boy or a girl? Will you marry me? I mean, like any of the stuff that you think that you would do in a chit chat space. And we're going to go in the future, we're really headed toward a place where that's even going to get way more complex and more awesome, just right out of the box. So these things are just, I would almost tell you, think of it like what we're doing is building it where it's modular. So you can make it what you want, and then you have the tools to go make your own gap fills. Right. And if you want, you can edit our source code, or you can even contribute back.
Yeah, I'm not even sure I want an assistant for anybody else to deal with. I want something to help me remember. I mean, I'm dealing with so much information now, and I almost want to create my own FAQ site where I could just go and ask it questions. So like when I'm working on a project, when I'm done, I dump the project into this and say, okay, here's all the things I want you to remember. Cause you've written stuff that you go back to 6 months later and you're like, who wrote this? And what, you don't even recognize your own stuff. It may be helpful for me to train something as I go. And in other words, use Q&A to train something. And then I just keep asking it questions when I'm unaware.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, if you take the productivity skills that are out there for like calendar, email, and to-do, you can add those in. So you can say something to it like, remind me to go buy 54 cases of beer tomorrow. and it'll put it into your Microsoft To Do. I mean, it'll like figure that out. And I can't remember if we have it in our future branch or if it's in the current master branch. But at one point we were playing with understanding that you set a food item and put it on your grocery list. Like, remind me to get eggs. We'll put that on the grocery list because that's a food item. So so stuff like that. It's not that you can't do that with a commodity assistant, but imagine now this is the gem assistant, right? You can, it can do what you want. You have full control of all the data.
I want to build it
and everything. And it just becomes fun. I mean, it really can be fun. The most fun, I think, was had by one of our devs. He's a good friend of mine. We were testing sentiment analysis and determining when someone was upset. So he got to spend a week cussing at it, and he said that was the most fun he's had in his job in quite some time. So I was like, hey, yeah, your job is to cuss at it. And he was multilingual, so he could throw some Spanish at it and get it sounded much more vulgar in Spanish.
Like a stress ball. It's like a stress assistant, Mike.
And a combo of kind of like the voice font with an enterprise and implementation. You mentioned the gym. I'm thinking of a device on every single rack of equipment at a gym. I walk up to it and say, hey, what did I bench last week? And it tells me, right? Because it knows that voice is Mike. Mike's asking what I did last week, and I told it last week, hey, I just finished a set at 275 or whatever, and then it just remembers that.
What's my next set? Like,
what's my next set? Yeah, like, well, but all that stuff, because that's the biggest thing is everyone at the gym's like, what was I lifting last week? Because I can't.
I see these guys carrying around papers, and like checking stuff off.
That's what I did. Right? That's what I was doing with the paper, and having a device there could make it so simple.
Right on.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying is things like that. Think about it. That's a very specific thing. Yeah. I would only be talking to you about this. Why the heck would you put Lady A there?
Right.
It makes no sense.
Right.
Or if she's there, you're going to talk to her about playing music or set a timer or something, something like that, because that's what you talk to a commodity about. But when you're talking about specifically where you want to say, I don't know, like, hey, Norditrack, right? Up the speed to, or change the degrees to 60% and give me an update and record my heart rate change. Right, or something like that. Like, that's very specific to that type of experience. So who's arming that? Well, right now, I think we're one of the few in the game that are actually playing this. And interestingly enough, we're not competing in places like music or like in all these different things. So we don't have our own agenda in a sense. And in some ways, it's kind of good that Microsoft got out of that stuff because it opens markets that we don't, where we can enable other people and not have to
appear to have a conflict of interest too.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So it makes us natural plays and stuff like that, So, but
super interesting, Dewain. Super interesting. I know you're surprised. Like this, we had this at the end of the show notes, and you were kind of like, I want to talk about this at the end of the show. I don't know, Mike. I have found this terribly interesting.
Same.
Yeah. No, I think this is super interesting. Dewain, let's just say this: we got about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit more. Okay. And I'm traveling to London, and you've been doing in 2 weeks, and you've been doing a ton of travel. I mentioned in the beginning of the show, Jim Shoemaker wrote in response to my London travel, he sent me, he's like, hey, here's the things I've learned. And we turned that into a blog post. Dewain, in your travel, like if you could give me 2 things, like I'm going to Europe and you're going to give me 2 pieces of advice from a gadget standpoint of like, what can I not get wrong on this trip? What do I need to think about? What are those 1, 2, or 3 pieces of advice that you'd give me?
Okay, so I have to ask a couple qualifying questions.
Yeah.
Is this business?
Wait a minute. Are you a digital assistant? Are you real? Or is this, have I reached a bot that you just made?
This is a real Dewain.
Okay. Because you could fake it. You could have just switched over to the bot.
Yes, this is yes. So surprise everyone. I'm actually an avatar. And
that would be weird. Okay.
Hey, and the bot wouldn't be under NDA, but he is, so we could get all the good information. If he dumped all of his information to the bot, and the bot told us, we could get all the insider scoop.
I like it.
So my question is your trip business or personal?
100% business. 100% business.
Okay. So from a business perspective, you're going to be going, okay, and how are you flying? Are you flying business class, or are you
no, I'm
flying
coach. I'm coach all the way.
Okay.
I'm coach.
So there's a couple of things you're going to need. One of the things that I feel like you have to get down is thinking about that you're going to be on a plane, and you need to have, for me, the thing I learned the hard way was, and the reason I had put that RAV power device in there, which was my power brick here that I was going to tell people to go get.
Yeah. You still can.
It's not just about having a power brick, okay? Because if you take this one, which is a 30,000 milliamp power brick, and you take that and you go to China, coming back is going to be fun.
Really?
Because it exceeds what China will allow. They only allow 26,500, which is why the 26,400 is a popular size. So the thing about this is the fact that it is USB-C and it's USB A, right? So the thing, but it charges fast. It charges fast. And it can charge fast. So it's 10,000 milliamps, and I paid $26.99 for this thing. But the thing is that what you're looking for is topping up. Like, you're going to need that because that's a long trip jump. So what's going to happen is you're going to have some devices that need to be topped up, and you don't have a lot of time because you need to be able to like top it up and go, because you're going to be in the airport and you need to get on the plane. And so I would highly recommend that you have a smaller like one of these type of battery packs. 10,000 milliamps is, I think, the sweet spot, because you can charge up your iPad. You can run a laptop off of this thing, depending on what kind of laptop you got, or charge up your laptop, and even if it's like a trickle component. And then the good thing about it is if it goes completely dead, you can charge it back fast, because if you go and look at the charge times on like this massive brick, it's huge. It's incredibly long. But this one, 3 hours and 16 minutes, it goes from 0 to 100. So from 0 to 80% is going to be a lot faster if you know much about battery impedance and things like that. And I've had to learn a lot with the Tesla. So I would say that's my most important thing to be in your bag, is a good 10,000 milliamp battery pack.
While you're searching for the next thing, I just got a new laptop issued to me, USB-C for power and docking station, which is super great. But that reminded me, like, I have some smaller, like, I've never had the capability in a laptop to do it that way. And now I'm thinking, I have some smaller chargers. I better see what I can and can't do with that thing, kind of based on the batteries that I have.
Number 2 most important thing on travel.
Yep.
Headphones.
And tell us what you're showing there.
This is Bose Quiet Comfort 35s. These have 21 hours of battery life. If you're going to be on an international plane and you don't want to talk to people about their mail merges, the most wonderful thing. I never wear a Microsoft shirt on a plane. Never. Yes, I've had someone tell me that. The second thing, when it comes to headphones, these are the ones that are my favorite right now, which are the Jabra Elite Active 65Ts.
Are those really good? I've heard good things about them, but I've never talked to someone who actually has them.
Yeah, so now they just released a 75T, and I can't speak to that one, but it looks like the 75Ts are going to take this to another level. But if you are like me, Jim, I have to take conference calls, and I have to, and I might switch from an iPhone to an Android phone, or I might want to pair up with a Surface or something. These are good because they work as like a wireless headset very well for conference calls and stuff. They're not noise canceling, they're noise isolating, but they are so good in the noise isolation that normally the lady has to tap me on the shoulder to tell me that it's time for me to get a drink. And so I would say that that's good. And the thing is I feel like you need both of these because this is also sleepable. You can over the ear headphones, you cannot sleep on a plane with those, but these you can. And so I keep them both in my bag. I will use these a ton, like walking around the airport, getting on short flights. The big earphones come with me if I'm going international because I need the time, and they sound better. I mean, and they're also take more noise out because they're noise canceling. The new Bose ones that have like, it looks like a cylinder down the side versus mine are flat on the side. So when you hold them to the side like this, you'll see these are flat. There's one that has like a cylinder that comes down. My boss has those, and he was taking a conference call on the show floor at Ignite, and nobody could hear anyone but him, and he couldn't hear me talking to him like less than 2 feet away from him. So
what's the brand on those? What's the model of the brand?
That's the new Bose ones that it's like, you'll see them, they're over the ears and they have like a cylinder down the side. Okay. Those are really good. Like I said, my boss has those. The Quiet Comforts are the ones I have because those didn't exist when I bought mine. But you won't have to buy another set of headphones over the ears after you get a set of Bose. It's like the only reason you get rid of them is because something compelling happens on another one. But these, like I said, these weren't expensive, by the way. These Jabras, I think right now they're $189 for the active ones, and the active ones are sweat resistant and stuff. I went ahead and got those, but the 65Ts are even cheaper, and you can get them. And the beauty is the app works for both Android and for iOS, and it has the hear through and all that stuff. And my biggest complaint with, I know everybody will say like the AirPod Pros are better. They are better, no question, they're better, but not if you have to use an Android device or a Windows device occasionally, because they don't support all the features, don't get supported, and it's a pain in the butt. I just wish Apple would get over themselves on this and sell the things and give you the support you need. So that's most important thing. And then I will give you a bonus thing, and the bonus thing is you need to be very selective in what you need on this trip. And when I say that, I won't go into the details of the Pro X situation because we were going to talk about a Surface Pro X, so we'll come back and talk about that.
I'll have you back on here in a couple weeks.
But the reality is, it is very important for you to think about what you really need on the trip. Like having to break your back carrying massive amounts of compute and things with you. Do you just need Netflix? It's a business trip. Do you just need Outlook and Netflix? Do you really need everything? Like I carry an iPad Pro, and I have the Surface Pro X, and I have 15 different laptops, right? But the reality is, before I go on a trip, I actually start thinking about what am I going to do there? What is the purpose of the trip? And how light can I go? Because, and I'm finding that this whole concept for me, because I'm a bit of a road warrior, I will pay the money to have a machine that just sits in my laptop bag. Or I'll have I actually have varying scales of weight and power depending on what I need to do. If I'm going to do excessive amounts of typing, then I'll go one direction. If I need to compile code or do something major with with video editing or run a massive emulator, or maybe I need to bring the Mac because it has a specific emulator I need to run on it. I don't duplicate what I bring when it comes to laptop. I just bring what I need. And then if it need extensive entertainment, I'll bring an iPad.
Yeah.
But I'm not a fan of the concept that the iPad can be a PC. It is a consumption device as it sits, and it's a great device if you're going on, if you've got the LTE one, go get yourself those Jabra Evolve 75s. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
You get a set of Jabra Evolve 75s and a iPad Pro with LTE and throw Teams on it, and you have a mobile, go anywhere, do Teams, and you still got your other little computer sitting to the side where you can do your work or whatever, and that thing just does Teams, and it is amazing when you do it that way. But you got to think that's what it's for. So what my point on that is just think about what you need so your bag doesn't get too big, and also think about the charger that has to go with it to make sure that you can maybe maximize your chargers. Like when you go to, I would recommend you go on to Amazon and get yourself a power strip looking thing that probably has a couple of USB, like it has USBs up and down it. And then it also has a few power outlets on it. You probably got one that you're going to show me.
Yeah, I did. I already bought one. So we've got, it's ready to go for the UK. And then it's got 3 plugs and 2 USB, $16 on Amazon. And I think I'm ready to go. I can do just about everything that I need.
That's going to be perfect because you'll need that to do it. And then make sure that you're not going to Europe. If you go to Europe on your laptop, just go get one of those really cheap 30-cent like little clip-on things that clips and converts it, because your power adapter is going to do the conversion.
Right.
But those are the things. I mean, those are the key things. Is make sure you can think about power, make sure you've got what you need, make sure you can do it fast and on the fly, and then and see, some of the beauty of something like this is that when you throw them back in, they charge, right? So you don't necessarily have to charge this back up. If I could get my whole world to USB-C, then that would be a beautiful day. But if I'm going to go, like I'm going to go on vacation while you're going, I'm going to go down to Orlando.
Nice.
Kids don't know. And, and I'm going to bring the Behemoth because I want to play games.
Sure. Well, you can, right? At that point. You don't have to worry about the piece there. Mike, we lost a little bit of your bandwidth for some reason. I'm not sure why. Yeah, you just got really blurry. Dewain, thanks. Well, I'm going to, behind the scenes here, we'll get you scheduled. Like, we had a whole bunch of things we wanted to talk about, and we got wrapped up in the bot framework, and it was super cool. We'll come back around, have you back on here December, January sometime, and cover those things. A couple reminders for everyone. Next week in the United States is Thanksgiving. Mike is out hunting. My daughter Samantha will be guest appearing on the show on Friday night. So no Thursday night. It's Thanksgiving. Take the night off. We won't do that. Friday night, her and I somehow have to turn that podcast around. I leave at 1 on Saturday. I need to turn that podcast around and get on a plane. We'll probably go earlier. Watch Twitter at Jay Collison for show announcements of the live show on Friday going forward. A couple of reminders then after that. Of course, I will be in London the week, so we're canceled the week of the 5th. Aaron Lawrence is back on the 12th, and Joel from Live Door is coming in on the 19th. So we have a whole bunch of stuff coming up and schedule. We'll get Dewain back in there as well. Paul Barron is joining us. And so we've got, and I even got Jay Madison lined back up again. Mike talking some hardware. Jay will be back. So we're excited about that as well. Just a couple reminders before we go. Don't forget, if you want to support us on Patreon, you can do that as well. theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. Got plans out there available for if you want to do it. Even if you want to sponsor the show, I now have a sponsor the show for a month plan. If you want to go out and do that, maybe you got some crazy idea you want us to talk about, you can go out to Patreon and check our sponsor the show plan that's out there. I don't ever expect anybody to actually take me up on it, but if you one day I was just messing around on Patreon. I'm like, why not? I'll just give it a try. So if you want to get that done, you can head out to Patreon and get that done as well. Don't forget the whole network. The whole AverageGuy.tv network, powered by Maple Grove Partners, gets secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. WordPress optimized, and I think nobody does it better than Christian. No offense, Azure. And that in that case, plans start as little as $10. MapleGrovePartners.com is the way to go and the place to find it. And then don't forget to download the app that's available for you, HomeGadgetGeeks.com. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at the Average Guy I said every Thursday, but you know what I mean. It's during the holidays. It gets a little sketchy. So just kind of keep up. We'll be back. I'll be back next Friday with my daughter, and she's super excited. She's calling herself a professional podcast guest. That's what she besides mine. So she was on a while ago. She did really well when she was on. Mike, don't you think Sammy was pretty good?
She was fantastic. Yeah, she did a really good job.
Yeah,
I'm actually missing her next week. I wish it was the week after.
She was a little disappointed that we'll have to have her on when you're back because she was a little disappointed you wouldn't be here as well. But she's been on 2 other podcasts at the school, and she's like, that means I'm a professional podcast guest. And she put it on Twitter. I'm like, okay, sounds good. She's actually really good. So she'll be here next Friday. And with that, we'll say goodnight, everybody.